We're joined by John Micklethwait, the editor of The Economist magazine. Just before you're about to jump into a taxi, you've just addressed the Durham Union Society, and we are standing in the shadow of the Durham Cathedral. What is the future role organised religion will play in British society? Are we going to see a terminal decline and the rise of secularism?
I think in Britain, secularism is pretty entrenched, but I would expect to see the heat of some religions coming back. You're already seeing that with Islam to some extent. I think even in the Church of England, you're seeing some element of a more kind of fervent edge, and also with the Catholics a bit. There's a bigger evangelical thing in Britain happening than first seems apparent, but the basic idea that we're part of Western Europe, which is quite a secular area, is going the opposite direction.
In the light of the ongoing Leveson inquiry, do you believe the relationship between journalists and politicians has become unacceptably close? Surely we need to observe some degree of independence here.
I think your question would have been absolutely correct prior to the downfall. I think now politicians are incredibly nervous about appearing too close to journalists. So there's been a kind of step back in that direction. The truth is that it was quite interesting that Alan Rusbridger, and I hope I'm not paraphrasing him, is that he appeared from Leveson, and he pointed out, this is the editor of The Guardian, and he pointed out that one of his predecessors used to get rung up by a Labour Prime Minister and asked whether the following cabinet changes were fine or not. And that was something not even Rupert Murdoch, I think, got on a regular basis. So there's always been a quite close relationship.
Do you think Britain will see a return on its Olympic investment? It's quite controversial, seeing as we are now in 2012. Are we going to see a return on this huge investment?
I think from the point of view of seeing a straightforward economic return, no. I don't think there's any way in which the amount of money that is pumped into the Olympics is really going to immediately pay back. And if you were going to regenerate East London, then you were better just spending the money straightforwardly. Because in the end, if you build a Olympic village for people who have to bring pole vaults into it, that doesn't necessarily make it one where smaller people not carrying large poles necessarily want to live. So it takes a lot of money to convert it. That said, like everyone else, I'm looking forward to it.
Now, we touched on the future there, and this is our last question. Touching again on the future, we students, there's a great deal of anxiety among us about the future state of the British economy. Has Britain's day as a great economic power come to an end, and are we going to inherit a country that is in terminal decline?
I think not. I think that when I stopped being a student, there was much more, or certainly when I started being a student at the end of the 70s, if you go and watch the Iron Lady film and you look at what Britain looked like then, that felt much, much more like a place in decline. I think what we have now is a sense or a worry that things aren't necessarily going to get that much better, but we don't feel as if relatively we're slipping behind in the same way as we did back then. Back then, you really, really felt as if Britain was being left behind by everybody. Now, it's a different form of challenge. And yes, people are concerned about China. Yes, people are concerned about Germany. Yes, people are concerned about America. But it's not quite the same. Britain is a sort of bigger force in the world.
To close on an optimistic note to follow that response, could you pass on any tips for students wanting to follow in your footsteps, to follow a career in journalism in its many forms?
My main advice to people, and I'm sorry I'm so bad on the radio, or helping people on the radio, but my main advice to anyone who wants to do journalism particularly written journalism, is to write, to get things onto paper, because the first articles you write, at least 3 or 4 of them, won't be as good as you imagine they were at that precise time. So basically just trying it out and getting better. All of us, when we look back at our first articles anywhere, always regret some of them.
Well, Mr. Micklethwait, thank you so much for addressing our societies this evening, and we do wish you all the best and enjoy your scotch.
Thank you.